Welcome back. Now it's time for our weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy.
Good to be here again, Nima, again for our weekly. Of course, this is the last week of September. We head into October, Thanksgiving next week, and energy markets, well, they're really all over the place. Oil's moving up, pushing to $94 a barrel, coming back to $90 a barrel. And of course, that's West Texas Intermediate. But we are seeing variations in gas prices. It would appear that the higher the price of oil is going and the pursuit of refineries to try to fill the gap of the significant supply shortage of diesel, that they're actually, as a consequence, producing a lot more gasoline. So we have quite a mixed story right across Canada from west to east, in which we're seeing most of Canada, that is from British Columbia interior all the way back to the East Coast, prices are dropping, but we've seen rather radically high prices for Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, and of course Vancouver Island. So we'll start there. The United States, California in particular, has had a serious problem with refineries. Their green mandates have killed off about 20% of the refineries that they need because they have such a specialized boutique type of gasoline. There aren't many alternatives for California. Nevertheless, it's created a bit of a run on supply, and that in turn has seen gas prices move up about 13, 14 cents a liter in Vancouver and, of course, on Vancouver Island. So it's directly related to the West Coast phenomenon as state governments from Washington, Oregon, and California do what's already been done in British Columbia, and that's be trendy and cool and try to minimize or at least throttle off energy supplies. You wind up with these kind of consequences. That means, of course, that while prices hit almost $2.15 a liter in Vancouver, they're likely to fall to about $2.07, $2.08 as the problem begins to abate in those two refineries in the Southern California region get back on track. Well, enough about Vancouver. Let's talk about British Columbia. Not much movement, staying in the 175, 180 range. If you're in the Kelowna Kamloops, if you happen to be up towards Prince George, a little less expensive in the 167, 168 range. I'm not seeing much of a change this week. Same for Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Now, Alberta, of course, in the high $30s, mostly because the provincial government there doesn't tax, at least on the provincial side. Saskatchewan, price is very sticky there. It doesn't really matter what markets are doing. They're really staying in the 155 in Saskatoon, incredibly. That's below cost, by the way, and as high as $1.63, $1.64 in Regina. Ditto for Winnipeg, Manitoba. It looks like we're going to stay range bound, the 160 to 163 range. Ontario, look for prices to drop tomorrow by 4 cents a liter to $1.57.9, but that will recover later in the week. We'll be back over $1.60 or about a 3 cent increase by the end of the week. Same for Montreal, down to 169, back to about $1.73, $1.74 by this time next week. And of course, the Maritimes, all over the map. Regulators there, especially in Newfoundland, decided to be really cool not to give the 7 or 8 or 9 cent drop that everyone else got. They actually waited 5 or 6 days. Talk about fleecing the public by government consent. Look, regulation doesn't work. There's transparency in the market. There shouldn't be this kind of hybrid system or some kind of synthetic system that a bunch of bureaucrats come up with. Let's let the free market make its decision as to what the price ought to be. And more importantly, given that everyone can predict gas prices a few days ahead, these numbers are very transparent. Let's let the free market work and ensure that consumers are not, as they are currently in Atlantic Canada, being fleeced by their own government and, frankly, regimes that who have long since lost their relevance and effectiveness and utility. At the same time, let's talk about the international dimension. We are looking very much at oil prices continuing to rise. Gasoline will eventually have to follow suit. I don't see that happening until the second week of October, but I am watching the calendar and I am watching weather, my own weather, not, of course, meteorologists who can predict climate problems in 30, 40, 50 years, but can't predict what's going to happen in the next couple of days, let alone the next couple of hours. We're looking at cooler weather. And with cooler weather, more demand for diesel, which is, of course, heating oil. We have a couple of refineries on the East Coast that are down for maintenance. We've had a very quiet season on the Atlantic as far as hurricanes are concerned, but nevertheless, prices are going to start to go, starting with diesel, which I expect across Canada to move up an average of about 5 or 6 cents a liter next week in anticipation of those colder temps. Nevertheless, that's it for this week, Nima. We'll have more to say next week. Bottom line, prices are going to go up a little bit next week, not too much. It has nothing to do with the long weekend, Thanksgiving.
All right, thanks for that, Dan. Again, that was Dan McTeague with our weekly energy update.